First is to know who am I, second is to know what is this world outside. Now see that who am I? I am the real self. So then what is the world? So when this world and the real self combines together, it is known as individual consciousness. Why it is individual? Because the body is there, mind is there, intellect is there, thoughts is there. Now I want to know what is the existence, what is the supreme consciousness. So when I start searching the supreme consciousness, I see the real self and the supreme consciousness are one. The moment I find one, I separate myself from the Prakriti. Then this Prakriti appears, just seems like an appearance. It is not there. For applied life, it is there. But deeper inside, it is not there. It simply appears like the waves in an ocean. It appears like the blueness of a sky. It appears like the changing aspect is happening because of we give example of a rope in a snake in a rope. So snake in a rope, the moment I see this world is real, it means I see the snake in a rope. When I see the same word as an appearance, it is appearance from the existence, from the real self. Then you continue to live into that state of supreme consciousness. That state of the supreme consciousness. There is no... So that is why I just explain in a way, let me know who am I, let me know what is the world, let me know what is this existence or the supreme consciousness. So now what happens? In the beginning, for every seeker, I explain in the way. But what happens when we reach to the higher state? Then there is only the real self. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing less. Everything is an appearance. Everything is a wave. Only the water remains. So when I am the water, outer level, this body-mind complex is one wave, that body-mind complex is another wave. So you are already settled in the real self. That real self is the supreme self. That real self is the God. That real self is the existence. That real self is Satchidananda. There is no difference. So in the beginning I say first know what is real self, then know the world outside, what is the world. Third, you know the supreme consciousness. So as one progresses into, and then the person, seeker, starts realizing what you are talking about. They are not three. They are only one. There is only one real self. When I see appearance as a real, I am individual consciousness. When I see that world as an appearance, everything is real self. So the fourth question, then I say that once I know who am I, what is this world, what is the existence, then I discover how to live, think, work, and act in this world from moment to moment. It becomes clear to us. So there is a realization inside. At the same time, now there is no doer, there is no enjoyer. So there is a constant awareness that everything is happening because of Prakriti, and the Prakriti is nothing but a wave to the real self, and the water, the presence of a water can affect the waves. The presence of a real self can affect the body-mind complex, provided ignorance is not there. What is that ignorance? Ignorance is ego. What is that ignorance? Ignorance that I see you and me are different. What is ignorance? That I am here, you are there. But the water is everywhere, the real self is everywhere. So what is that ignorance? That is why Patanjali explains we have 5 kleshas. You see that he did not explain that pain is suffering. He says suffering is 5 types of false notion. What are the 5 types of notion? Avidya. Avidya you say Maya, avidya you say Prakriti, avidya you say delusion, a lot of names when they are explained differently. So avidya is one. So avidya leads to asmita, ego. Ego leads to attachment and detachment. And attachment and detachment leads to now I am, ego is sitting in the body. It says everything is okay, but I am the body. So as long as I am the body, that notion is there, then I cannot realize the real self. I have already declared that I am the body. How can I know I am the real self? But I have to break that notion. So how to break that notion? So by understanding, by acquiring a knowledge, by practice, by dropping the identification with the body. The moment you drop the identification with the body, then what happens? There is no doer. Who is the doer? Body, sense organ. So when I drop the identification, you start from the 5th one, abhinivesha, strong identification with the body, that mind, intellect or ego is 100% sitting in the body. It says for all practical purposes, even to find meditative state, I am sitting in the body. I don't want to leave the body. So that takes place surface level, that takes place 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level, 5th and 6th level. 7th level, we drop the total identification with the body. So Patanjali explains there are 7 stages of consciousness. Accordingly, Tantra explains there are 7 chakras. Survival, instinct. Survival means obviously survival for what? Survival for the body. Desire for the body. I may have a very big mansion, but I only sleep on one bed at a time. Do I have that realization? I have the resources, build it. Use it for some good purpose. Good purpose means satoguna. So I am selfish because I have to use my resources to live in satoguna to maintain that state. So in that way, the seeker is always selfish. Outwardly, it appears that you are donating in charity and etc., you are helping people, nothing like that. You are selfish. You maintain that level of awareness all the time. Okay, let me help. Just after your session, I will be going at 2 to a youth yoga teachers training. So now see, I have another colleague. She is very wonderful, but whatever comes to her mind as an impulsive nature, she said, "Sir, can you teach this topic to the youth? It is not at all related." Now, what should I say? I have already told her a couple of times that let us follow a systematic approach. She doesn't want to follow. Why? She has a little bit of ego that this will help. So when I realized, I said, I have to do nothing. I have to teach, whether I teach one topic or the second topic. Who cares? So why to enter into any kind of a conflict? Let us continue. This is the way the world continues. Your honey is upset. Let her be upset. Don't attach yourself too much. The honey is full of pleasure. Okay, don't attach yourself. So you see that five affliction, 5 causes of suffering: avidya, asmita, rag, dvesha, vinivesha. So you are always aware. So because your level of awareness helps you instantly to become aware the person in front of you is living in that state. That is what in In a different way, people say that masters can read the mind. Yes, they can read the mind. But it is not intentional, because if I'm reading the mind, so there is a ego. There is a ego. So what happens? Reading the mind means simply that real self, you are settled in the real self, and that makes everything clear. That makes everything clear, black and white. So you know. You are simply aware. That is the meaning of reading the mind. Otherwise, there is no other meaning at all. But if you give importance to that reading, then you have to bring the ego. And when you bring the ego, then you are gone. Ego is opposite to the real self. Either you are real self or you are ego. Either you are real self or you are ego. Now I told you, I think we have covered that from one of the great texts, Neshkarme Siddhi. There are 7 layers of ignorance, and the 6th layer of ignorance comes from non-thinking. I do not think. Why I am different from you? How I am different from you? So when I really contemplate and reflect how I am different from the honey, because of the outer layer, because of the male or the female body, but let me go little deeper. So behind the skin, it is all the same system, same blood, from where it comes from the food. It is the same food. How? So like the science, you try to find the ultimate cause. So what is the meaning of non-thinker to thinker? You want to know the ultimate cause. So when you want to know the ultimate cause, you find where is the difference? There is no difference. There is a difference because of pleasure, because I am attached. So pleasure is a projection, and projection is a delusion. So you see that all these principles come to the same point, come to the same level. Okay, there are only 2 things in the world. There is one that is real self, and the other is not self. Either you say it is matter or consciousness, or you say it is Prakriti or Purusha. So extension of Prakriti are billions and trillions. But why it is so? Why it appears to the mind? For me to realize the real self. One option, to enjoy the pleasure and continue suffering. Only 2 options. Only 2 options. I have $1 million, so my mind says, let me enjoy, have the pleasure. 1 food, 2nd food, 3rd food. 1 bed, 2nd bed, 3rd bed. 1 marriage, 2nd marriage, 3rd marriage. 1 car, 2nd car, 3rd car. But now I become a non-thinker. When I repeat it, 1 car, 2nd car, 3rd car, 1 house, 2nd house, 3rd house. Now see that I become a non-thinker. Why I become a non-thinker? Because I find here is a 5% pleasure and there is a 10% pleasure. Pleasure is pleasure. Pleasure is short-lived. Ultimate cause, pleasure is short-lived. Pleasure cannot continue on one object for a period of time. You repeat it 10 times and after that you are fed up. We don't think in that way, and that is why the mind lives in ignorance, avidya. Go back to avidya. Avidya builds the ego. Ego says, no, I am happy, Bill Gates, I'm happy with Melinda. No, I'm not happy, Now I realize that I lived loveless life for 27 years. So you have become a thinker, very good. So you lived a loveless life from a one woman, very good. Now, do you realize that every woman cannot give you happiness? No. So why I feel loveless life? Because I have found another woman. That is working in his office. So that is why I build up a relationship with her to have a loveful life. Do you understand what is loveful and loveless life? So he is a great genius. I respect him. I love him. He has done tremendous work. You see the Satoguna? So Satoguna combines with the ego, you destroy yourself. So you might have done a lot of good things to the people, but you have not done anything good to you. That is what causes the problems. Not very subtle, not very difficult to think. So you can, in your life, you are a great thinker. You ask good questions. So think of it. So ego, yes, I realize there is a ego, but I stop thinking. No, think over it. What is the ultimate cause of the ego? And you will find there is no ego at all. Wall, hammer it, you hurt your hands. Let me go deeper. It is made up of atom. Atom is made up of electron, proton, neutron. Electron, proton, neutron, at a parallel level, it is energy. So now that is what the quantum physics. It is a theoretical physics. Still, they have to validate. Theoretical physics is equal to mc square. It is still theoretical, even though there are a couple of applications. But now I see the ultimate cause. Let me start thinking same way about the ego. What is this ego? Where it is? Who recognizes? It is recognized by the intellect. Why? Because it lives in the intellect. You see the beauty of our ignorance. The ignorance is one of the greatest forces working in our life. What is that ignorance? One thought is that you are Taras. And there instantly comes another thought. I recognize that you are Taras. Who is this I? Both are thought. Both are thought. So now one thought takes the shape of a thinker. And other thought expressed that you are a Taras. What a crazy stuff. What is happening to you? Where is the ego? Both are thought. I am proud. I am richer than you. But where is this I? I is also a thought. You is also a thought. It is simply a word. So, but why I give more importance to I thought? Now ask yourself, why I give more importance to the I thought? Because of attachment and detachment. I am richer than you, I am smarter than you, I am beautiful than you. So you see? So when you think from a non-thinker, you become a thinker. You see, where is the ego? Why should I worry about it? Why should I create and build a castle in the air? No, nothing is required. But the moment it comes for a transactional reality, applied life, I have to work, I have to use I have to use you. So it is play and fun. So now karma does not create any impression of doer and the enjoyership, because you have realized. So it has to be repeated from non-thinker to thinker. Now you have started the Shravanam. At the same time, you are doing the Mananam. Mananam, contemplation. Now, contemplation leads to conviction. What is conviction? It is discernment. You remove the doubt, it is dispassion. So where the discernment and dispassion lives, it lives in the intellect. So when it lives in the intellect, ego also lives in the intellect. Both are living side by side. So in the intellect, you create these patterns of a thinker, and that thinker dilutes and dissolves the ego, then you are free. You have reached to a state of contemplation. Whatever the little doubt is left, you do the practice, and that removes. Practice of meditation. So it removes the ignorance. So now what happens but it has to be done again and again and again and again and again until you find the real self is the truth, ego is the superficial reality. So realization, why it comes? Why that realization comes? See, we realize this ego borrows the consciousness from the real self. So ego is dependent. First dependence, that it borrows the consciousness from the real self, that matter becomes alive. And that matter, which is ego, holds on to the body, mind, intellect, thoughts, attachment, detachment, that creates the ignorance. So the real self remains as it is. So we have to simply become a non-thinker, lead to conviction and clarity, and still the doubt remains. That doubt is removed by meditation. You are there. You are there. So based on the entire principles of the Eastern journey, you can start from Patanjali. Patanjali says empty the mind. So when the mind is empty, and when intellect perceives the mind, it says there is nothingness. And there is no ego also. Okay, that nothingness brings the self-fulfillment. One approach, Upanishad says that the mind is of two types, impure and pure mind. So start working on the impure mind. Impure mind is full of desire. Desire leads to projection of happiness outside. So again you start with introducing the different principles, how the mind becomes impure, how the mind becomes pure. Patanjali has a clarity that you have to start with a mind that is focused, one-pointedness. Here we say pure and impure mind. Yoga, the Gita says path of karma yoga, jnana yoga and bhakti yoga. They combine together. It is like Patanjali explains in the second chapter, Tapah Swadhyay Ishwar Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Tapah Swadhyay. Tapa means discipline and education of the mind. Self-study means path of knowledge. And Ishwar Pranidhanani means Bhakti Yoga. So they use the three forces of the Prakriti. There are three forces of the Prakriti. Intellect should be filled with the right knowledge. Emotion should be redirected to the supreme existence. It should not be directed to your false ego. And at the same time, you discipline and educate your mind. So they all lead to the real self, which is static, which is unchanging, which is Satchidananda. That is the way we understand this. But now go to the Tantra. Tantra says there are two entities, Prakriti and Purusha, Shakti and Shiva. One is dynamic consciousness and other is static consciousness. So it uses the dynamic consciousness. Dynamic consciousness means it uses the Shakti. So it does not say in the beginning that real self, Satchidanand, immobile Brahman, immobile real self, all pervading real self, all changing, all unchanging real self. It does not say. It says no. Similarly, Shakti is a dynamic consciousness. So let us use it. Let us use that dynamic consciousness. So when we use this dynamic consciousness, which is known as Shakti, what happens? We realize, we experience a bit of happiness coming from inside in a dynamic state. There are 16 acharas. 16 acharas means 16 steps, which includes almost the same thing. You want to enjoy sex? First be separate completely from the sex. No attachment is there. What it means? Whenever you want to infuse the sensual power in your sex organs, you have a total control over it. So means how to have total control? First you have to go through these practices. It may take 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Now you have reached to the state. There are crazy practices in Tantra yoga, which has become a part of the Hatha yoga also. So what you do that, I tried it for a couple of days and then my master said, this is craziness. You need not to follow this path. So there is a catheter, you put it into the penis. Very thin catheter. Okay, then after 3 months, you do it, practice every day. And after 3 months, you are able to insert a very thick catheter. Inside there is a thick catheter into the penis, and then you suck the water. Okay, another 3 months passes. Now you suck the oil. So now you see that when you are able to suck the oil, which is heavier and dense than the water. So you are able to suck, it means you have a control over your sexual organ. And ultimately you start sucking honey, and ultimately you suck mercury. And when you are able to suck the mercury, now the semen is totally controlled. Go for the sex. So when you still able to hold that force inside you. So that is the meaning, that semen has to be transformed into a spiritual energy. That is the meaning, because now you are able to hold it. You have a total control. So Tantra Yoga says that in every activity you can reach to that same state. Take an example, you are looking at a beautiful man or a woman. So now it says that become aware of the beauty instead of a man or woman. Where is the beauty? So that beauty is a dynamic state of the mind and the intellect. It realizes that beauty is different from the body. So that practices are very much available in the Tantra. But Tantra discipline demands a tremendous practices at the physical level, at the mental level, at the emotional level, because it says that you should have a 16 acharas, 16 steps, out of which 7 or 8 steps are you able to control by naturally the sexual urge, the eating. You have to do a lot of fasting so that you have control over the food. You have control over the sensuality that vibrates as power and the force in the body. And the mind is directing. The mind has to be pure. The intellect should know, it should separate ego from the body. So there are a lot of practices, subtle practices are given. Like this one that I explained to you. We have a different Tantra mudras. They are not like this. They are different mudras. So when you practice those mudras, so what is happening? Now see that. Real self gives the consciousness to the intellect. Intellect gives the consciousness to the mind. Mind gives the consciousness to the sense organ, to the body. Now you are able to tap the consciousness present in the sense organ. That is one of the most fascinating aspects. So consciousness matter, Shakti. Consciousness matter, Shakti. So now consciousness present in the mind is Shakti, in the intellect is Shakti, in the body is Shakti, in the sense organ is Shakti. So now you gather Gather the force by which these sense organ, body, mind, intellect are working together, all together. So that all together is known as kundalini. Or in a simple way, the prana is known as kundalini. But mind is, prana is, what is the desire is the impurity of prana in the mind. Now see that desire is the impurity of prana in the mind. Desire is a force. So that force also contains Shakti. So that Shakti is a mixture of consciousness and the matter. So you drive consciousness from there. They all gather together. But how you drive? Until you have fear of death, you are stationed in the body. So you clean the body so much, you take over the body so much that now you have a total control over the body and its sensations. So you don't allow that energy to go through any holes in the body. So that is the purified prana. Now the mind is in charge of the prana. So you redirect that prana. Why we say you help the prana to rise? Because you leave the survival instinct, the desire and the greed and the six enemies. That is the meaning of rising. And falling, you get trapped by it. So when you are trapped by it, remember Patanjali Yoga Sutra, 5 causes of suffering. 5 causes of suffering. So Tantra has many disciplines. There are 64 disciplines. I remember a master which is known as Aghori. I still can see. He was more than 6.5 feet tall and lying like a dead at the bank of a Ganges river. So I and a couple of my friends, we all were seekers, we saw them and we checked, he is breathing. So all the 5 and 6 people took his body and put him into a room in the monastery, in the ashram. He was totally absorbed into the real self. That is another part of the Tantra practice. You don't care. Body is a filth, finished. So you reach to that state of the body. Body is sleeping, you are awake. So after 3 days he came out of the meditation. And then he said, this is what he explained, that I was fully aware, you guys are lifting the body. But I did not allow that consciousness force to enter into the body. So body appeared like a dead. So they are known as Aghoris. That tradition is also very famous, like Aghoris. So remember again 3 principles. I'm combining everything: Rati, Trapti and Trishti. So Rati, you are already out of it. So whether you go for a sex or you do not go, it doesn't make a difference. But now how to get rid of this Trapti, eating food. So they go to the cremation ground, and when the people left the body burning, they take that same body and they eat it to get rid of likes and dislikes. That's another very deeper practice. They eat it, there's no difference. When there is no difference, so they want to kill their attachment and detachment, liking and disliking. They can eat any damn thing. Why? Because they are working on the mind. So they reach to that state. And the third level, accumulation, they don't accumulate anything. They don't accumulate anything. So once you do the sadhana in Tantra with the Rati, Trapti and Tushti, you reach to the same state. But then these Aghoris are simply they are not meant for teaching. Only the rare people. They are simply absorbed. They are exhausting their karma in the present life, living into the body. They don't worry where their cremation should take place. They don't need any kind of recognition. They come, they achieve that state, and they live into that. They leave the body. So that is another Tantra path. There are many, 64th path of the Tantra. Then there is another Tantra path by which you are rich and you have all the resources and you have the time. Means why you have the time? Because you realize that I had enough resources, I can continue my life for another 2 or 3 generations. So you leave outer activities, professional activities, and you minimize the social activities. Then you learn this Tantra where you have to gather maybe 105 articles, and with that you carry out your Tantra practice of mantra from morning till evening. You are doing it, and ultimately you are absorbed into the same reality. So that is the beauty of our Eastern wisdom. We have almost many paths of it. Look at the Patanjali in the first chapter. He says, are you a seeker? Understand the 5 subjective states of the mind. From a non-thinker you become a thinker, and ask the intellect to settle into one-pointedness, and from there you can enter into meditation, because you are a highest level of a seeker. If you are not, what should you do? You should do Kriya Yoga. What is Kriya Yoga? Kriya Yoga is Tapah, Swadhyaya, discipline and education of the mind and the body. Second is Swadhyaya, self-study, means path of knowledge. Third, path of emotional integration. Why we do it? Patanjali says, because your mind is distracted. But why the mind is distracted? Because that distraction is nothing but the false notion. What are those false notions? These 5 causes of suffering. So the Patanjali says, now I will guide you. What are the 5 causes of suffering? And what is the result? It minimizes the suffering in your outer life. Highest level of a seeker has nothing to do with suffering. Suffering and pain and pleasure, they all are equal. So I am treating the path. Second level of a seeker, because my mind is still distracted, I live into those false notions. And what are these false notions? These 5 causes of suffering. So that is why you need to practice Kriya Yoga. I have to discipline and educate the body and the mind. I have to discipline. I have to gain the right knowledge, and I have to find out the path of emotional integration. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Ganeshaya Namah. I am a devotee of Krishna or Shiva or Goddess Kali, doesn't make any difference. But we should know the soul of devotion, surrender. We should have the right knowledge, and we should continue to act in our daily life. So because that will help me to remove the distractions. Who causes the distractions? The 5 I have already mentioned. So what happens? Gradually you are making these false notions very subtle. When it is purely physical, outside, then the mind constantly thinks you are smarter than me, I am smarter than you, or I am richer than you, you are. But when it becomes very thin, you have that ego which is like a spark. So that with that spark you become the meditator, and ultimately you dissolve your ego and you reach to the same state. You reach to the same state. The most beautiful part is summarized in Gita. Look at the first chapter, Arjuna. Arjuna means simple, kind, committed, sincere. Duryodhana, opposing forces. Duryodhana means cruel, always opposing the knowledge, always opposes the knowledge. But the most important part of the Gita in the first chapter, that I have a problem, I am suffering. Still, I want to know why I am suffering. I want to receive the knowledge. Let me find out the cause of suffering and remove it. So there the Krishna appears. So why I want to remove the suffering? From where? Which part of me? It is intellect. It is intellect. So Arjuna has achieved everything. He was never defeated in any war. It is not possible. He was of 86 years old. Krishna was 89 years old. At the age of 86, he was living in ignorance because he won every war. So that gives me pleasure and happiness, and also the pride. And it has built the ego. But in spite of having the ego, the Arjuna mind says, now I have reached to this stage, what should I do? I still have a suffering. Can I bring an end to the suffering? That made him approach his friend Krishna. Otherwise, normally we say, I have a lot of money, I will file a lawsuit against you, I will win, and we continue suffering, for example. So that quality is required, but that quality demands an intellect. I have to be a thinker. So Krishna went to Duryodhana, the head of the opposing force, and both are within us. Intellect is in between. I have negative forces, I have positive forces. Patanjali says this mind flows, mind has two flow. The river has one flow, but mind is the river that has two flow. One goes to Shreyas and other goes to Preyas. You see the clarity of the concept. So Krishna went to Duryodhana and said that why you give couple of villages to these Arjuna and they will be happy. He did not agree. Then Krishna started teaching this yoga. Duryodhana said, I know everything. Don't teach me. But my mind does not want to follow what you say. I will follow what I feel like following. So I am following the path of prayers. So the end, death is inevitable. Those who follow the path of prayers. I remember, my mind is going back. So you look at a moth, the small insects, when you open the light, they are attracted to the moth and they die. They die. Because they are attracted to the light and the light is hot. So these moth and the small insects die. Same way the elephant has a greater sensuality. So they dig a hole, the hunter dig a very big hole and they cover it with the grass and they make a noise of a female elephant and male elephant falls into that is what the life of a Duryodhana. So Arjuna has started thinking like this, no, what the hell I'm doing? 86 years of my life, I have won the war and still I am suffering. My suffering does not come to an end. So let me approach Krishna's. Arjuna says, I will follow what you say. I am your student now. I can rephrase it. Arjuna said that I have been living with you, but I never thought of it. It is my ignorance. So he has already become a seeker and approached it. you don't need to practice anything. You need only knowledge. You're already a seeker. You instantly dropped all your delusion. But still I have to find my real self. The second chapter starts with the intellect. Steady wisdom, unsteady wisdom. So then Arjuna says, which one is greater, karma yoga and jnana yoga? So again he is asking a question. He is not challenging Krishna that you are crazy. Huh? Sometimes you say karma yoga, sometimes jnana yoga. But Arjuna says with all humility, remove the confusion of my mind. Which one is greater? Krishna says both are greater. Jnana yoga inside, karma yoga outside. So now you see that the problem of karma and the jnana is solved in my daily life. I am not changing my lifestyle outside. I am living a personal life, professional life, social life, family life, but with the knowledge inside. But with the knowledge inside. So that is how the journey starts. That is how the journey of yoga and the Eastern wisdom starts. Then we have many permutation and combination of karma and jnana in the fourth chapter. In the fourth chapter, we have lot of permutation and combination in the fourth chapter of Gita. So fourth chapter of the Gita, again we come to the yoga of knowledge. We come to the yoga of knowledge, that come on, make the knowledge very subtle. That should become the wisdom. And fifth chapter is dedicated to understand what exactly is dispassion in detail. Dispassion with reference to the body, with reference to the mind, with reference to the intellect, with reference to the ego, with reference to relationship outside, with reference to the money. So we understand deeply that how to live in the state of dispassion with reference to rati, trapti and trishti. Then we have the sixth chapter says, understand this false self. False self. So remove that idea of a false self. So now see that Arjuna is not practicing anything. He is getting knowledge step by step by step by step. So you are simply removing what is the goal of Krishna. Arjuna is a great seeker. So he listens, he understands his and he changes. He realizes by listening. And in the seventh chapter, we talk about something, yoga of essential and comprehensive knowledge. Again, the knowledge is explained in detail. I said there is non-self, there is a real self. But then we go deeper. Real self, not self. Real self, not self. So this intellect becomes clear, 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 clear. And in the eighth chapter, we realize, we understand what is this Satchidananda. Satchidananda. So once we have done all the 8 chapters, the 9th chapter says, what is the royal knowledge of yoga? What is the royal secret? So now see, Arjuna goes on asking the questions and he removes his delusion. Then he says, how can you explain to me that real self is all pervading? I should remove that doubt. So that becomes the 10th chapter. Then you realize that how the real self is becoming Taurus and the real self is becoming this guy. The real self is becoming 2. In fact, they are 1. How to reach to that state? But then Arjuna finds it is all a dry knowledge. Then Krishna says, come on, surrender to me. So he teaches something about emotion. So you see that pure love is one of the attributes of Satchidananda. So once you have realized, you understood that, now, then he says, what is about this world? Like an agricultural field. So agricultural field, you sow the seed, it becomes the tree. Prakriti is a great agricultural field. Millions of people, millions of living species, different colors in the forms, but behind there is one master of the field. If the earth is the entire farmland, real self is the farmer. Oh, how it is possible? That we explain. So why now, how come you say that this world is constantly changing? How come? How come you say that? So Krishna brings the same principles of satoguna, rajoguna, tamoguna. Prakriti changes because of satoguna, rajoguna and tamoguna. No, but you have already said, so how that real self or the supreme consciousness lives with the three gunas? Krishna says, I will explain you. You see, he removes all the doubt. Then in the 16th chapter, he says, what happens when you are on a journey, you gain lot of powers. How to handle those powers, which are known as supernatural faculties. It is natural. It is natural. Because you are doing lot of meditation, you have lifted your consciousness, you have left the survival instinct, desire and everything. Now those powers are there. How to use that? So there Krishna again explains the threefold nature: intellect, sattvic, intellect, rajasic, intellect, tamasic. So when you live in the tamasic intellect, you use these powers. You even into the rajasic, even into the sattvic. So how to live beyond the three gunas? Constantly. And ultimately he summarizes in the 18th chapter everything what the yoga says. Arjuna says, my delusion is gone, I am ready to fight. So he does not say that I am awakened. He says, delusion is gone, it means I am awakened, I am ready to fight. So now he realizes that nobody takes birth, nobody dies. Relationship is nothing but based on attachment. So because I understood what is the sattvic path, so now it has reached to a culmination in my relationship. So let me follow the sattvic path. Even now you see that Arjuna is killing people, his own friends and relatives, brothers, but he is leading, it is sattvic. It is sattvic action. Duryodhan is also fighting and killing people. It is tamasic action. So what is the ultimate meaning? That it is the real self which is the absolute truth. Our action cannot define whether I am sattvic or rajasic. See that? So action means doer, and the doer is false identity. So internally I am settled in the steady wisdom, I am settled in the real self. I am also killing, you are also killing. But my motivation and intention that I am settled in the real self, so my killing is sattvic. Your killing is tamasic. Means what? Result is that action cannot define by realization. Action cannot define. If the aghori eats The burning flesh of a human being, action cannot define what is right and wrong. But he is doing his sadhana. He is not killing anyone, but he wants to get rid of his likes and dislikes. Possible, that is also possible. So you can introduce these things. For the last, that has not to be recorded, so but all these